Well, joining me now is the man at the helm of affairs in the multilateral development finance institution based in Ivory Coast, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina. He talks about his vision for Africa. Dr. Adesina, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Well, congratulations on your assumption of office as president of the Africa Development Bank. But let's now understand, what are the main issues that you will be tackling as president?
The Africa Development Bank is Africa's premier development finance institution, and it's been doing a lot of incredible work over the years. But I just want to say that Africa today, everybody knows Africa is rising. There's no doubt about the fact that Africa is rising. And the economies are doing very well, but there are a number of questions we must ask ourselves. Who is the Africa rising for? Where is it rising? And how are you going to make sure that it rises for everybody else? So the issues of inequality is the most important thing for me, is that Africa is rising, but at the same time, you find that the upper income quintile, in terms of, within countries, they are earning 11 times those at the bottom income quintile. If you take a look at countries that are top 5 countries in terms of GDP per capita, they are earning 30 times those at the bottom, in terms of the income of the GDP. So basically what you see is that we are growing, but we are growing in a way that just creates so much inequality. And this is something that, well, because, incomes are growing only for the few. If you take a look at it, most countries that are growing are very, very few countries. Take a look in terms of private capital investment in infrastructure. Today, most of the private capital investment in infrastructure goes to actually 5 countries in Africa. Let me not mention the countries, for now. But basically, just the point I'm just making is that only a few countries. And the founders of the bank intended the Africa Development Bank to help to foster growth that is equitable all across. And so one of the major things that I'm going to focus on is making sure that we support the large countries, that we support the medium income countries, and the low income countries. There is space for everyone, and that's one of the things I'm really going to focus on. Now, in terms of priorities for the bank, the first thing and the most important thing for me is energy, power. Power has been the reason why the industrialization of Africa has actually been stalled for quite a long time. And without power, you don't get SMEs, the small and medium-sized enterprises don't work as well. Even the educational systems don't work as well. The hospital system for vaccines don't work as well. So power is everything. And so for me, I can't think of anything more important than power. And when you look at it, the question is Africa has tremendous amount of potential in energy. Take a look at the amount of resources we have for renewable energy. The sunshine is there. Africa today has a total of 11 terawatts. Africa, just for solar. If you take in terms of hydropower, we have total about 350 gigawatts potential. If you take in terms of wind power, we have about 110 gigawatts potential. And you look in terms of geothermal, we have about 15 gigawatts power. You take all that together, that tells me that that's a continent that ought to be exporting power. No one that doesn't have power, no. And for me, it's not acceptable that Africa doesn't have power.
So now you're president, how are you going to help specifically the economy of Nigeria?
Well, my perspective when it comes to development issues is you list the things that you're most ashamed of, and you do the opposite. The fact that we don't have power is not a good thing at all. For me, it's not acceptable. Sure. Second thing is the fact that we lose today 600,000 people every year in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, because of upper respiratory tract diseases, because of the secondary smoke and even that they have when they cook biomass, and women, they're just trying to cook a decent meal, right? And they die from trying to do that. Now, that is not acceptable at all. So it's not just about kilowatt hour, or megawatts hour that you're talking about. It's about life. It's about opportunities. And so that is how I see power. And so for me, the critical things that we must get right in power in Africa is, first and foremost, we cannot eat potential. We got to unlock all of Africa's potential for conventional energy, but also from renewable energy. Second is that we must make sure that we price energy properly. Like in any market, if the price is not price, I mean, the price is not right. People don't invest in it. So we have to actually look at the pricing of energy. We have to also reform our utilities to be sure that actually the utilities are working well. We also have to make sure that, you know, the investors that come into the energy space, they need a certainty that their investments, which take a long time to build, is going to pay off in the long-term basis. So you need to be able to give them an assurance, especially if they're independent power projects, that somebody's going to actually buy the power. And so those power purchase agreements are going to be very, very critical going forward. But you also look at other types of, you know, potential that you have, like big hydro potential. You take a look at in, you know, the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. That's what they call the Inga project, is the Inga Dam. And the Inga Dam has a whole capacity of powering about 1/3 of Africa, but it's sitting there, right? And so that's what I mean. We just have to really unlock all of what we have and power Africa. And so that's going to be a huge thing for me. But the second thing, without surprise at all, is agriculture. You know, because 70% of Africa's population live in rural areas. Majority of those that are in agriculture are women. And so, and I believe firmly that agriculture is not about it's not a development activity as we've done in Nigeria when I was Minister of Agriculture in Nigeria, had the honor of serving my country. Agriculture is a business. And so we're going to work tremendously to unlock Africa's huge potential in agriculture and agribusiness. You know, agro-allied industrial development, value-added processing to everything we produce, and making sure that Africa actually exports. As I say, we've got to export processed cocoa, not cocoa beans. Export processed coffee, not coffee beans. And export textile, not export cotton. You make money when you actually add value to things. And so we're going to support African countries to better diversify their economies, but take agriculture as the way in which you can really literally lift up hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. But of course, I'm big on private sector. The bank is going to be big on private sector. You know, how we develop private sector, get financing available to small and medium-sized enterprises, develop private capital markets, very important. You know, both the equity market and the bond markets are very important for us to develop. And how we integrate our regional capital markets to be able to mobilize a lot of resources on the continent is going to play a big role. And for me, in particular, as I take on the leadership of the bank, I want to see the bank drive industrialization of this continent. This continent is not industrializing, it is deindustrializing. And so when we get the power right, and we also get the skills right, and we focus on private sector capital market formation, let's drive industrialization. I think exporting raw materials for me makes no sense. You have to actually add value to it. Otherwise, you're going to be exposed to a huge amount of volatility in the commodity markets, like we've just seen what happened in the China equity market.
Africa must feed itself, you know, food security must be attained. All of these are laudable objectives that you have brought in as president of the bank. But then, what challenges do you see in Nigeria's agriculture sector that might impede on these objectives?
Well, you know, first and foremost, the price of oil has gone down. You know, it is at a low of about 6.5 years, the lowest it has been in about 6.5 years. But it's not just even the price of oil. With a lot of the turmoil that you see in global commodity markets today, you see a lot of tumble also in terms of the price of aluminum, of copper, you know, and basic other industrial metals, right? And so basically what that means is that the more you export raw materials, be it agricultural, be it minerals, be it oil and gas, whatever it is that you export that is raw, you are subject to global market volatilities. That's the first thing. And secondly, is the fact that eventually, if you don't diversify very quickly, it will affect your fiscal space because you don't have a lot of foreign earnings. You will find that the cost of your import, your currency will depreciate, and the cost of your bringing in goods will go up, and you can drive up inflation unless you have very tight monetary policy to actually rein that in. You will also have that a time of trade will go against you because, you know, you will run current account deficit in terms of balance of payment problems. So basically what the bank will do, will continue to do, is help countries that are exposed to all these volatilities, these shocks, you know, and Nigeria is there, several other countries are there because of our dependence, you know, on oil. There are several, you know, take China. You know, Africa supplies 1/3 of all the energy needs of China. 85% of what Africa exports are all raw materials. And so that tells me where Africa is at the bottom of the pyramid when it comes to this. So what the bank is going to do a lot more of is support African countries to, first, diversify their economies. Secondly, to also diversify their markets as well, you know, and also to be able to have very strong fiscal management, monetary policy management, so you can have a lot of stabilization there. That is crucial. And finally, is just simply make sure that you add value to every single thing that you produce. And I think I can't emphasize that enough. This is going to be one of the major things that we drive at the African Development Bank.
Okay, hold on with those thoughts. We're still with the president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina. We'll be right back on this. Join us again.